Hello and welcome to Revolutionize Your Relationship. I am your host, Eva Blake. And in this series, I'm talking to a variety of experts who are uniquely qualified to educate and empower you to master your mind and body intimacy, to unleash your passion, and to create everything that you desire in life and in love, because you are absolutely worth it. And I am thrilled to introduce you today to Dr. Elsbeth Moit and Freddie Zintal Weaver. And I first want to tell you that I love these two people. They are beloveds of each other. They are husband and wife. They are business partners. So we're going to get a lot of juicy goodness today. Elsbeth and Freddie have assisted thousands of couples and singles to create long-lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their relationships. They've been featured on Showtime's documentary series, Sexual Healing, and the Emmy Award-winning NBC show, Starting Over. See, I'm so excited that I'm garbling their introduction just a little bit. So I hope that you are excited with me today. They are also the best-selling authors of Sexual Enlightenment and the co-founders of Tantra Nova Institute in Chicago. So welcome, Elsbeth and Freddie. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Eva.
Great to be here. Thank you for your platform.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to start with the biggest question that I think exists in the world, which is, how do we do it? How do we create and sustain passionate love that lasts for decades? You two have been doing it. You work together. You play together. You teach together. So how do we do it? What are the answers?
Practice.
Yes. Go for it. Tell me more.
Getting off of it, things come up, but it's getting off of it.
So I think there are two key ingredients. One is your mindset. Like, where are you coming from? And I think for us, the foundation of where each of us is coming from is that we want to be with each other. Mm-hmm. And not only wanting, the wanting then goes into, this is what I'm committed to. First and foremost, vis-a-vis myself, out of which then the ongoing commitment to Freddie grows. Mm-hmm. And then the other ingredient is to have daily practices where we connect, and not through talking. Now, talking too, we talk a lot with each other. I don't mean that we don't talk, but it's really about the heart connection. And sometimes it's just a very deliberate hug. But it's deliberate and intentional, so it's never done casually, or because that's the sweet moment when we get to connect, when our hearts connect, and when the flowers are tickling me. and those are also the sweet moments that, carry me then back to the computer or, whatever project is.
Yeah, I always say relationship is the big opportunity to see something about yourself that you otherwise wouldn't see, one, and two, to learn how to allow the other to be fully who they are. And that's really letting go of ego, possession, all of the stuff that happens in relationship. So if we look at the relationship as an opportunity to really transform so much unconsciousness, then you can, be together and keep growing and exploring and, being, coming back to happiness and fulfillment.
Over 20 years ago, before I met Freddie, I got very clear that I wanted to create lasting intimacy and love in my life. Because I had love and intimacy in my life, but I was not able to sustain it. I was attracted to unavailable men, and, that was exciting at times, but most of the time I was alone. Yeah. And then I really looked at, Elspeth, what is over here with me that you bring this into your life over and over again? Because I always thought it was them. If they only were available. So I think just with your question that just popped up for me, that back then I set the intention that I wanted to have lasting intimacy and love, not just like, love and intimacy. And then once I was ready for that, guess who came into my life?
Yeah, beautiful. there's something really fascinating about what you've both said around commitment and unattachment, right? Being committed, but not being attached. And I think that, in the story, the kind of the media story or the kind of cultural narrative is like you get married to someone and you're committed to them as a person. And sometimes it becomes them and who they are just as they are in that time and place. And what I really hearing you say is like, I'm committed to the vision of love. I'm committed to the vision of intimacy. I'm committed to the vision of connection. And I'm really open to seeing who this person emerges to be over time. Like, what can we possibly create together? And I think that's a real, it's a real departure from the traditional, construct of the relationship escalator. You do this and you do this and you do this, and then you have children and you have babies, and then X, Y, and Z happens in life. So I really love that you're bringing this nuance forward.
Yeah, and usually that's what happens. You get in the relationship, and what becomes bigger than the relationship is usually the children or the property, or But what we did is we almost 6 months to the day we met, we transcended the romantic drama by creating Tantra Nova, and this became our baby, and it fulfilled both of us individually and collectively. And so something bigger than the romantic drama that feeds the creative spark that you both can really excel at in terms of really bringing forth your most unique self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really beautiful. Yeah. That the relationship is the ground for each of the partners to further emerge into their fullest self-expression.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd love for you to talk about, the two of you work together. And I've talked to a lot of couples who either also work together, they maybe own a business together, or they are really successful in their careers. And they're just like, but something is just not working in the relationship, right? So something is going really well in one part of their life, and then it's not going really well in the bedroom or in their emotional connection with each other. And I'd love for you to talk about, like, how do you support a couple to shift, right? To go from it's working great over here and it's not over here into success in both and in all areas of life.
Let me say this. One is the balance of the polarities, because when you're in business together and both of you have your business head on, that's a very masculine, linear way of being. And then when you get in the bedroom, who's going to be more masculine, who's going to be more feminine? It really doesn't matter, but you've got to decide, or else that polarity is not going to be happening, Yeah, and so that's where I think a lot of couples miss the connection.
The polarity is really the magnetism, because if both of us are in our yang or the masculine, just the other way around, if both of us are in our feminine or yin, like we're talking about energy here, is that there is no magnetism. Just like, there is a North Pole and a South Pole. And because of their polarity, there is a magnetism which actually keeps the world together. Otherwise, the world would fall apart. And it's the same thing in relationship. And that doesn't mean that I always have to be in my feminine. But I do know that if I want to experience pleasure, joy, and, like bliss, being in bliss, feeling bliss, I want to be able to let go, because for a woman's energy and orgasmic self, it's not linear. It doesn't happen upon command. It's in my flow, and then it may surprise me, and that means that I surrender to myself, I surrender to Freddie, I surrender to, the mystical, the miraculous. And, Eva, for me, for years, I didn't even want to touch the word surrender. Because it's synonymous for me with giving myself up. Yeah. Now I hold it very differently. Actually, I'm getting myself more out of it, but it's like letting go in order to get myself more fully. And so I really had to learn it in some sense, or be open to, let go. And it's the most rewarding thing. You probably know that. I mean, and also then to have a man who is grounded in his masculine, who can hold the feminine, because the feminine can be so intense and moving and tender. And one moment this, the other moment totally different. And of course, in the tantric practice, the man learns to being grounded in his manhood and open in his heart, so that his sex and your heart are connected.
One of the things that I really love about where you're coming from, both of you, is about that this it's all a dance. It's very nuanced, and it's also really intentional, and that there's a space of mystery, right? So when you were talking about surrender, I was like, I've had some big lessons on surrender this year, which has really taught me about not like controlling the situation, in that way of like, I want to be secure. I want to be sure about something, right? I want to get it right. And surrendering from that place, I really resonated with what you said, which is like, I know myself better because I can feel the power that comes through me when I just open and let go and not try to force something, right? Yeah. And that actually had everything to do with a relationship with myself, not even a relationship with somebody else, in the moment that I learned that lesson. So I love how you're bringing that. Like, if we surrender and open up, then something magical can emerge and come forward.
Yeah, and that surrender is really important for women, particularly today, because there's so many women that are competed in the man workspace, and more women are running countries, running companies than ever before. And that women don't, I think it's important that women don't forget the feminine, because it's not just about the masculine. I mean, it's important to have that linear, that calculating, aggressive mindset. And we have to remember the tender, the seeing ourselves in each other, the nurturing. That's what's going to save the planet. And that's what men have to get too, because there was a time when, the masculine man cutting down the tree and, killing the saber-toothed tiger and, grabbing the woman when he wanted to. That was the way it was. But that whole thing has changed now. I mean, men have to learn how to integrate the masculine and feminine, that yin-yang balance. And that's really imperative in terms of where we're headed as a evolving humanness,
I'd love if you could talk about, the two of you could talk about the actual practices, like some of the actual practices that you do, right? To stay in that polarity, but also to shift it and to do something different, as you were talking about, Freddie, right? For like, what does it look like for somebody who is living primarily in the masculine space, especially for men, to actually soften and transition and come into the space of opening or receiving? Like, what are you actually doing for and with each other, and even with yourselves, to create that kind of magic?
Well, one of the things that we do at Tantra Nova is we are working with life force or sexual energy as a doorway to seeing something that we otherwise wouldn't see. Because oftentimes people think, well, gee, this is sexy yoga and, or I want to have better orgasms or whatever. And that all can happen. And one of the things that we're using, the sexual energetic, our doorway for people to get to, is an unmasking, because when you're in the sexual energy, we're more open, loving, vulnerable, receptive. Chemically, we're changed, more oxytocin, endorphin, serotonin, the feel-good hormones. So now introducing the distinctions that we teach, the conscious breathing, with awareness of energy, with intention, like I want to create a beloved or a work that's fulfilling or a place that's inspiring or whatever it might be, we get more unmasked to what we don't see that's running in the background, that's creating what we're getting that often isn't what we may say we want. But we're also these carbon units that, kind of exist neurosynaptically from experiences from the past. But what connects us to the universe is our vision, the capacity to dream of something that's never been before. So we're teaching how to really let go of what we are kind of, limbically wired to remember and automatically do, to start living with grace, ease, and flow towards what we most deeply desire. And that's working partly what we do is teach how to work constantly with the life force energy.
Yeah, so let's just look at, because there are different dimensions of practices. So we strongly recommend to have solo practices. Solo practice for the physical, sexual, for the emotional self, for the mental, the consciousness self. Of course, they are not separated. But we want to be aware of that. However, I bring myself to the relationship if I'm constantly complaining.
Yeah.
This is not an invitation for intimacy.
Right.
So how can I expect Freddie to be ready to go if I was complaining most of the day, or even if I'm the energy of that? I don't even have to open my mouth, but walk around the house in that energy. For one thing, that's also a testosterone killer for the man if his woman is like that. So I have the daily practice of really witnessing myself. What emotional space am I in? And Elspeth, do you really want to be in that space? Is that what you want in the relationship, who you want to be in life? And so it takes daily, it's not something you do once or a few times. It's just like with working out, it's an ongoing practice. And of course you refine. And then after a while, I'm just more in a joyful, welcoming mood for myself and also to Freddie. So there is the emotional practice with the self. There are also sexual practices with the self, where I want to transmute and channel my sexual energy in a self-love practice as Freddie does in his self-love practice, so that I'm connected in my channel, connected between my sexual being, my love being, and my spiritual or consciousness being, and I can channel this energy wherever I want to, into my heart, to open my heart more, to listen more. And of course, the pleasure energy is a wonderful energy to tune with myself. But again, as you said earlier, something about it, it's exploratory yet intentional. So I don't just spill my, sexual energy. I really use it. And that doesn't mean that I don't climax at some point, but I use it consciously. And then the third practice, the solo practice, is to be really keenly aware of what thoughts I'm thinking, what narratives I'm buying into. Narrative like, I'm not good enough. For example, we want to do a couples retreat in Costa Rica next February. And we want to expand it, have more attendees. And I immediately noticed that I go into but Elspeth, you haven't, had success with a bigger group of couples, small groups, yes. And, then early experiences when I came to this country and my brother said, are you crazy, when I arrived at Seattle where he lived without a visitor visa? How do you think you are going to get a student visa, the school I was going to go to? And I shriveled. I did it anyway, but with a lot of suffering, in constriction. Yeah. And so watching myself in the present moment so that I don't go into that same interpretation, I cannot do it, or I'm afraid I'm not able to do it, to, wow, I may not have done it before. Mm-hmm. Then let's create a new future, Mm-hmm. So that is the solo practice. And then to have partner practices on the same realm, in the same realms, the sexual, the emotional, and also the mental. So we support each other, and you can share more about it, how we support each other in terms of shifting out of, unuseful conversations.
Mm.
Beautiful what you're saying in terms of being clear that there are sexual practices, there are emotional practices, and then there's something that we do need to give our brain to be working on, because our brain can get really, really busy, can't it? Yeah. And part of that is choice. That's the other thing I'm hearing you talk about is choice. Like, what am I choosing in this moment to think, to move my energy? How am I choosing to show up in this moment?
Yeah, yes. And that seems to elude many in terms of choice. It feels there's no choice when you're angry, or when you're in an interpretation, or when you're in your evaluation of something, and there's no way to get off of it. And the only person to get off of it is you. But once you do, it shifts the suffering. But there's several techniques you can use. One, hit your hand with a hammer. No. Take your mind right off.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
But you can, we teach a particular kind of breathing, a parasympathetic breathing. And then there's another thing you can do. If you just bring your awareness to the center of your brain, it begins to step you away from your narrative. You immediately if you try it right now, we'll do this sympathetic breathing and then bring our awareness to the center of the brain if you want to try it for your viewers.
Yeah, let's go for it. I'm with you.
Let's take a minute. So just seated comfortably, your eyes can be open, closed, or soft focus. Mm-hmm. Put your hand on your belly, breathe into your nose, fill your hand up with your belly as you inhale like a big balloon, exhaling back up and out, all in your own pace, depth and rhythm through your nose. Any tension or holding in the body, acknowledge it, let it be, let it go. Letting the thoughts come and go. Feeling the rise of your belly on your inhalation through your nose, flattening of your belly on your exhalation through your nose in your own pace, depth, and rhythm. Now bring your awareness to the center of your brain. Letting your thoughts come, letting your thoughts go, feeling the rise of your belly on your inhalation, flattening on your exhalation, with your attention on the center of your brain. Begin to expand your awareness out to the universe, moving away from the earth into the darkness of creative ad infinitum space that goes on forever. Expanding your awareness, breathing into your belly, letting your thoughts come and go, centered from the center of your brain. Stay with that feeling, that vision, that focus for a few more breaths. Watching your consciousness expand out.
And then come back by opening your eyes. And you may want to notice, all of you who are listening right now, how you're feeling right now, how your body may be feeling. And Eva, if you could share perhaps if you feel right now.
Yeah, beautiful. I feel softer around the edges. I notice things like, where is the center of my brain right now? Where is it? But I also noticed like a nice, it felt really calm, even in the space of where is the center of my brain. It felt calm looking for it, right? I didn't feel frantic. I felt like this kind of sensation of softening around the edges. And what I noticed is my body naturally wanted to sit up a little bit taller. I felt grounded, like my butt is firmly on the chair. I can feel kind of the edges of my hips, right? Feeling really square. So even though I was bringing my consciousness here and sending it out, I could feel like my sensations were landing in my seat. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's really a great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is a kind of practice that we want to cultivate. And there are numerous of these practices, but the principle of connecting with our parasympathetic breath, mm-hmm. and then the spaciousness and the focus in the center of the head, that really, because you became more focused, yet more open. Yeah. At the same time. And so that is self-practice. And then, we may want to take that a little further, like partner practice. I spoke about earlier that we have daily practice, and we call them tantric quickies. Now, this is not having sex, and it can lead to sex if we choose to, but it is the tantric connection of the two beloveds that really nurtures the connection. Mm-hmm. You want to do the heart-to-heart?
Sure. So, if Elspeth is at her desk or, your partner is doing something in the kitchen, you can just come to the side of them, put one hand in the front of the heart and one in the center of the back, between the shoulder blades. And then that's the key for the partner to stop. So they don't, what are you doing? What are you doing? They stop and they drop into that belly breath, center of the brain, and they just feel the hand on the heart and breathe. And just let all the story and thinking and calculating and organizing go for a few moments.
Yeah.
And what happens is that the busyness of the mind, there's an energetic shift into the heart, because the heart doesn't think, the heart feels.
Yeah.
And I'm just reminded of that love space, that as soon as I bring my awareness to it through Freddie's touch, intentional touch, when he does that, he's totally with me. You know, he doesn't, not like that, totally with me. Now, also, we have an agreement that when one comes in that manner, the other one drops everything. And we do this sometimes just for 3 breaths. But in those 3 breaths, we become one. Because when we breathe together in synchronicity, there is a sense of oneness that very quickly arises. And that's nurturing, that's re-enlivening, that's exciting, and, you know,
grounded. We're grounded again, you know, because we get lost. We get here and, you know, so this brings us back to what's important, which is right now.
Yeah, and there's another one which I just love it so much. Just not.
Wait, before you go on, I just want to recognize something that I saw in you, Elsbeth, that I think is really critical for anyone who's watching this right now, which is that you were able to drop in super quickly, and that's a result of practice. If we practice over and over again, you dropped in super quick. And then Freddie almost moved his hand away and you were like, no, come back here. Right. And so that, you know, I don't know if you thought about that, but it looked like it was just instinctual, like, no, come back. This kind of way that the body responds to, oh, that was really good. I want more of that.
Exactly. I didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
You are so right. Yes. And it became very sweet. And it doesn't have to take a long time, because that is what we encounter working with couples, is that they say, but we don't have time. We have kids. We have busy professional lives.
Yeah.
But these 3 breaths don't take much time at all. They take focus and intentionality, willingness, and commitment to the practice.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
It's worth it.
Beautiful.
So, okay, Abby.
Sure. Yeah. Take a minute or two for that, and then we have to wrap up, but I would love to see.
So this is where we are both. The first one was more like he was giving to me when he was holding me in the front and the back. This is really a circulatory practice where we move energy. Do you want to go?
Right. So we use the breath at attention and intention. So with the breath, we breathe in together. We breathe out together. And on the next inhalation, we visualize receiving heart energy from the other into our heart. On the exhalation, we visualize sending heart energy into the other's heart, again, with the attention on the breath and intention to move it in the direction that we're sending. And that becomes very visceral.
And then we look into each other's left eye, because that connects us immediately to the brain hemisphere that is feeling, receptive, you know, experiential. And then we're just like,
get into the circle, into the spiral, into the whirl of it all.
Mm-hmm. Right. And as you said earlier, practice, we can drop into it, immediately.
I love it. Thank you so much for demonstrating, for providing the quickies. Because I think that, you know, one of the things that I hear a lot, I'm sure you hear this too, is we're really busy. We're too busy to have sex. We're too busy to do this like big, long thing. And how beautiful it is. What you've shown us is that we actually can create an intentional connection in just a few minutes without having to do a lot of thinking about it or a lot of explaining, that we can just actually be in our bodies together and let our nervous systems find each other and remember what it's like to be connected. And I'd love for you to tell us about the free gift that you're offering so people can follow up with you and learn more about what you're up to and the gems of wisdom that you have to offer.
Yes, we have a workshop in video form And it's called Ignite Your Relationship, where we go, further into depth about the practices, the sexual, the emotional practices. And yeah, we look forward to seeing whoever feels like wanting to learn more, to see you there.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much, Elsbeth and Freddie. It's such a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's so great for you to share what you're up to and the love that you have with each other, and you get to share it with the world. So I'm just thrilled that I get to be part of that today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And for everyone who is watching, come back tomorrow because there is going to be another juicy conversation for you then.